Back in late 2018, a piece of scientific news just exploded onto the world stage. But it wasn't a discovery to celebrate. It was an act that crossed a line so many thought we'd never cross. This is the story of that moment, the He Jiankui affair.
Right off the bat, you need to know how this was received. That quote, that's not from a critic or a rival. That's the official verdict from Chinese authorities. So what was supposed to be a huge leap for science was instantly seen by the world and by his own government as a total catastrophe.
So how on earth did this happen? How did the scientist's ambition to literally make medical history end up as a global scandal that landed him in prison? How did the world get its first gene-edited babies? And why did it go so horribly wrong? Well, let's get into it.
Okay, so it all kicked off with a secret project that suddenly just burst into the open. Nobody saw it coming.
And when I say this all happened fast, I mean fast. On November 25, 2018, a report surfaces pieced together from some obscure clinical trial data. The very same day, the scientist himself, He Jiankui, drops a series of YouTube videos basically saying, "Yep, I did it." Twin girls, gene-edited embryos, had been born. A day later, it's global headline news. And then just 2 days after that, he's on stage at a huge international summit, not just defending his work, but announcing a second pregnancy was already underway. It was just unbelievable.
And the reaction from his peers? It was not applause. It was instant, unified condemnation from all corners of the globe. The scientific community didn't see a hero. They saw someone who had gone rogue and shattered a core ethical rule. So no, this wasn't a celebration. This was day one of a massive scandal. So to really get this, we've got to rewind and look at what exactly was going on behind closed doors. The key piece of tech here is CRISPR. You've probably heard of it. The simplest way to think about it is like a pair of molecular scissors. It's this incredible tool that lets scientists find a super specific spot in an organism's DNA and then snip. They can cut, edit, or replace a gene. It's incredibly powerful, and, with great power comes great responsibility. Now, on paper, his stated goals sounded pretty noble. He wanted to edit a specific gene called CCR5. Why that one? Well, there's a rare, naturally occurring mutation in that gene that makes some people basically immune to HIV. So his idea was to engineer that genetic shield into babies from birth, specifically for couples where the father was HIV positive. And here's the basic playbook he used. First, he recruited couples for a study. Then, using IVF, he created embryos in the lab. Step 3, that's the big one. He used those CRISPR scissors to try and alter the CCR5 gene in those tiny embryos. And finally, he implanted the edited embryos, which, as we know, resulted in live births. But, and this is a huge but, this is where the whole story takes a really dark turn. Because this experiment wasn't just ethically problematic, it was, from a scientific standpoint, completely reckless.
And right here, this is the crucial scientific failure. His goal was to perfectly copy that known natural protective mutation, but he didn't. His own data showed he failed. Instead of copying the version known to be safe, he accidentally created entirely new mutations. Mutations never seen before in any human being. What did they do? Nobody knows. Their effects were, and still are, a complete mystery.
The risks he took were just enormous. First, there's the danger of off-target mutations. That means the CRISPR scissors might have cut DNA in the wrong place, causing who knows what kind of genetic damage. Second, something called mosaicism, which means the edits didn't even work in all the cells. It's like a patchwork quilt. Some cells are edited, some aren't, which could leave the children completely unprotected anyway. And maybe the most damning fact of all, the whole thing was medically unnecessary. There are already safe, proven methods like sperm washing that prevent HIV from being passed from father to child. So he exposed these kids to massive, unknown, lifelong risks for basically no good reason. And look, this isn't just us looking back with 2020 hindsight. That quote is from a scientist who actually reviewed his unpublished paper before the scandal blew up. His peers saw the data and immediately knew what it was: a deeply flawed experiment and a total fiasco. So, the science was a mess, but the ethical failures, well, they were somehow even worse. Honestly, this list is just staggering. It was later found that he forged his ethical approval papers. The consent forms he gave the parents were incredibly misleading. He called it an AIDS vaccine project. He completely bypassed existing Chinese regulations. And of course, the whole thing was done in total secrecy, no oversight, no transparency, nothing. And let's be super clear.
This was not some case of Western science criticizing China. The condemnation from inside his own country was immediate and harsh. 122 Chinese scientists signed a statement calling his work crazy and a huge blow to the reputation of their entire scientific community.
So with the science in tatters and the ethics shredded, the fallout was, as you can imagine, swift, decisive, and global. For the crime of illegal medical practice, He Jiankui was sentenced to 3 years in prison, and he was hit with a fine of 3 million yuan. That's about $430,000. And during the court proceedings, a really heartbreaking fact was confirmed. A third gene-edited baby had also been born. So in total, 3 children were brought into this world as the subjects of this reckless experiment.
This whole affair sent a shockwave through the world. The World Health Organization immediately put together an expert committee to set global rules. And China moved very quickly to slam the door on the loopholes he had exploited, drafting tough new regulations and eventually writing a ban on this kind of work right into its criminal law.
But after all the headlines, the trial, and the new laws, we are left with the most important and unresolved part of this entire story: the children. Their identities are, thankfully, protected, but they're out there, living with engineered DNA, and no one has any idea what the long-term effects on their health will be. And that really is the legacy of this whole thing. He Jiankui proved that the power to alter the human gene pool, to literally direct our own evolution, it's not science fiction anymore. The tech is real, it's here, and the question he forced the entire world to confront is one we still haven't answered. Who gets to decide how we use it?